Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to episode 12 of the ESG Show. I hope you've been enjoying our 11 episodes to date, and I hope that you enjoy this one even more than the ones we have produced so far. Before we continue, I should just mention, if you are interested in working with us on the ESG Show, either as a guest or as a partner/sponsor, then please get in contact with us. We're trying to make the show as good as possible, and we need your help to achieve that. And likewise, any feedback you give us is always useful. Now, we're doing something a little different this morning. Today, I'm being joined by a truly exciting guest, Christian Felber from the Economy of the Common Good. I'm going to be talking to Christian for about 30 minutes or so, and then we have a little bit of time for Christian and myself to deal with any questions that you might have. Also, on today's ESG show, we are playing a fascinating interview I conducted a few weeks ago that you might recall way back episode 3, I think it was. We did an episode of the ESG show, and we so totally and utterly ran out of time. I guess we're in full flow and we ran out of time. So I invited them back and we continued that conversation. And during that conversation, we discussed a topic which I think ties in quite nicely with what Christian is talking about this morning. So look, please hold on at the end of the discussion with Christian. That'll be around about 35 minutes past the hour. We'll be doing that, and we'll be looking at fast fashion, degrowth, and the wrong type of economic growth. Now, I'd like to turn to our main topic of today's show. Is GDP a good measure for the economy? Suppose for a moment oxygen was no longer free. Suppose we had to pay to breathe good old clean air, and the fresher and sweeter the air, the more we have to pay. I suppose in a way, paying to breathe clean air isn't a new concept. It is the reason why some people pay to holiday in Switzerland. But I think you get my gist. Fresh air is normally considered a free commodity. Imagine though we had to start paying for it. I wonder, at that point, wouldn't our consumption of fresh air suddenly show up as part of GDP? It is possible to imagine GDP increasing when fresh air is no longer free. And maybe that is the problem with GDP. It takes no account of things that matter. The air we breathe, the cleanliness of the water we drink, how beautiful the nearby countryside is, or how much time we have to socialize with our friends. Happiness is missing from the GDP equation. And that is to say nothing of the long-term costs of things like climate change. So today's consumption might lead to an unbearable cost to be paid by future generations or today's children, like, for example, my 2 young grandchildren. So maybe there is a better way. I guess this is the argument that degrowthers make. It is just that an economist who is a strong advocate of free markets might disagree with the above. And the most famous economist who was an advocate of free markets was perhaps Milton Friedman, who once said, "The social responsibility of business is to increase profits." In fact, he went further and said that business executives who pursued a goal other than making money were unwitting puppets of the intellectual forces that have been undermining the basis of a free society these past few decades. So what would Friedman have said about climate change? Well, as an economist, he believed in externalities and indeed advocated the idea of a carbon tax. But then there is this clip.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Isn't it great when these life things work pretty much the way you plan them to? There's also an economist, I don't know if economist is the right word to describe her actually, called Ayn Rand. Now, Ayn Rand once said, "The moral justification of capitalism is man's right to exist for his own sake, neither sacrificing himself to others, nor sacrificing others to himself." But is all this right? Today, I'm being joined by Christian Felber, the founder of the Economy for Common Good, and author of Change Everything, Creating an Economy for the Common Good.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for the invitation.
Good to have you here, Christian. So, Christian, are you with Ayn Rand and Milton Friedman, or do you have an alternative point of view?
Well, of course, no one should sacrifice anyone. I think there we all agree. And I'm also a freedom guy. But assuring all freedoms to all people is a very complex undertaking. And it's also sure that you do not get it if you focus only on profits, as Milton Friedman did, or returns. Then actually you sacrifice tendentially everything else, from nature to a cohesive society, to trust, to happiness, to democracy. And you will sacrifice in the end many liberties of many people. That's why my vision is a little bit different. My vision is to combine freedom with solidarity and dignity and sustainability and democracy. And in the end, I think this combined approach is more liberal than the thoughts of Ayn Rand and Milton Friedman.
Okay, thank you for that, Christian. Well, we'll come back and explore some of these issues in a little bit more depth shortly. Now, normally at this point in the show, we take a look at two recent news stories, and this week is no exception. And Christian, you spotted a rather disturbing piece on CNN about the extreme heat levels in Arizona, increasing hospitalization to pandemic levels at one medical center. So what were your thoughts about that?
Well, this is just one of many examples that climate change and the change of global ecosystems is ongoing. It's a fact. And I would like to draw the attention to the most widely referenced concept in global ecology, which are the planetary boundaries. It's a concept that appeared in 2009 from Stockholm Resilience Center, but it's the product of a very broad international collaboration of scientists. And they identified 9 ecological planetary boundaries, such as the climate change, but not only. It's more importantly about the loss of biodiversity. It's about chemical pollutants. It's about water. It's about fertile soil, nitrification, and many other problems, microplastics, for instance. And these kind of tell us about the state of health of the foundations of life. And the foundations of life, they are the base not only of our human civilization and societies, but they are, of course, at the same time, the foundation of all our economic activities. Without a healthy planet, without stable ecosystems, no economy in the end. That's why these planetary boundaries should become the fundament both of economic theory and then also economic practice. And there is another concept which translates the crossing of already 6 of these 9 boundaries. This is a very important information. This should be on the dashboards of our nations. We have already crossed 6 out of 9 of these planetary boundaries. And this is why the famous Earth Overshoot Day, this is the day in a year when mankind as a whole has already consumed all the biological resources that Mother Earth, our dear planet, is giving us for free in a year. But we have consumed this gift already on August 2nd this year, instead of on December 31st. And the problem is not that all humans are over-consuming. The problem is that 80% of humans are under-consuming, but only 20% to 25% are over-consuming. I don't know the ecological footprint of Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, but we know the ecological footprint of Taylor Swift, and she's over-consuming at least 4,000 times. So we need to do something on that, and especially economists need to do something on that, because they pretend to be the scientists that have wisdom in the efficient management of scarce resources. And we need to manage these scarce ecological resources more efficiently and at the same time more justly. And this is one approach of the economy for the common good.
Okay, thank you for that, Christian. Before we pursue, we've already had quite a lot of feedback from people, and I noticed that we've got viewers from Toronto, Uganda, Saudi Arabia, Gabon, and Toronto, Eastern Uganda, Jordan. My goodness, a lot of places, Nigeria. And incidentally, if you are watching this show from Africa right now, you might be able to help us, because at the beginning of September, we're planning to do a show on the African perspective on ESG, and we're struggling with finding speakers. So if you're interested,
I can give you a hint. Yeah.
Please get in contact. Thank you. And also, Nania Hurley, a regular viewer of the show, thank you for your discussion, your comment about planetary boundaries and the donut economics and their influence on the economy and vice versa. She says it's paramount to economic policies and the sustainable long term. Yes, thank you for that comment.
They should be at the heart of economic thinking, of economic theory, and then of economic policy and economic practice. This is what the donut economics approach and the economy for the common good jointly are struggling for.
Okay, thanks for that, Christian. So there was another piece in Reuters concerning Credit Suisse that caught your attention. It was about how Credit Suisse is cutting bonus payouts for top management, and you've got some comments to make on that as well, I believe.
Yes, because this was decided after we learned that Credit Suisse had made a compound loss in the past 10 years of 3.5 billion Swiss francs. And in the same period, in the last decade, it distributed bonuses of the amount of 32 billion Swiss francs. This is so incredible. And it shows that this capitalistic market economy in the financial sector just doesn't work, because Credit Suisse became bankrupt and had to be swallowed by another bank that is too big to fail as well. So actually both should not be allowed to exist, because both of them are too big to fail. Actually, the solution should have been a different one. And that's why I'm envisioning a completely differently designed monetary and financial system with smaller banks, with public banks, or at least private banks that are common good oriented. Why that? That because money is only a means, and it's a very sensible infrastructure. Money can turn out to be a very helpful tool, but also money can turn out to be a weapon of financial mass destruction, as Warren Buffett instructed us. And that's why we have to regulate the monetary and financial system more strictly than other branches of the market. And that's why we propose smaller and ethical banks that only give loans into the real economy, not for financial speculation on the one hand, and only after passing a common good exam, only after having assured that an investment which is pouring money into the future is not doing any damage to the environment, to the climate, to the social fabric, to human rights, to our dignity, or to the gender relations. Just for instance, this would be the future standard ethical creditworthiness assessment, which would be done next to the already existing financial risk assessment, which banks do by default and have to do by legal obligation. And next to these common good oriented banks, we would also have common good oriented stock markets, where companies are only listed if their overall sustainability performance is at least surpassing a minimum standard. And only then they are listed in stock markets, and we can design the whole system towards sustainability, towards system stability, towards solidarity and justice. And maybe at the heart piece of such a common good oriented monetary and financial system would be public central banks, which issue all the money, not only bills and coins as they do today, whereas electronic money is coming exclusively from commercial banks. In the future, where money is a bit more of a public good, all the money, including the electronic and digital money, would come from the central banks, and the benefit of creating new money would go to the general public. This would be a new design of the monetary system, but as said, as it's such a sensible infrastructure, I think we need to regulate it more democratically, more sustainably, and more according to our fundamental values.
Thank you for that, Christian. Thank you. And Abbas, thank you for your comment. I think you've expressed an interest in talking on our show when we're doing the African perspective on ESG, you can email me on michael.baxter@techopian.com. Christian, so economics is the study of scarce resources. And I guess Freeman would argue that the best way to allocate those resources is via the free markets, with government setting certain parameters and taxation to allow for externalities. Imagine, though, through some miracle of science, the famous economist and free market advocate Milton Friedman is transported from the past into the year 2023, and he's scheduled to make a speech to the United Nations. All the world's leaders are there, and they're all excited to hear the great man's ideas for the economy. And then, a few days before, you are in an elevator, and who should step in but none other than Milton Friedman. He looks at you and he says, "Ah, yes," he said, "you are the economy for the common good guy. Convince me that I need to change my speech to the UN." He presses the button on the lift to the 9th floor. You've got 60 seconds.
Okay, then I would say, hey, Milton, what is the future about? Is it about profits and returns? Or is the future about human rights and peace and democracy and stable ecosystems and cohesive societies and communities and fundamental rights? And then I would say, I think the future is about these goals, and the economy should be at the service of these overarching goals. And accordingly, we would have to design markets and businesses and banks and finance and trade that they are at the service of these goals. And therefore, we have to shift from merely financial indicators to more holistic indicators, to replace the common good product, to replace the GDP, the gross domestic product, by a common good product, to ask a common good balance sheet to companies, which is more important than the financial balance sheet, and to do that already mentioned common good assessment for every investment. And then the economy would be at the service of our overarching goal, which decide if we have a nice future or not.
Okay, thank you for that. Milton Friedman says, "Thank you, Christian. I'll think about that, and I'll poke my head round the corner and say, hey, Milton, I prefer Keynes to you anyway." But incidentally, we've just had a question. What is the source link for the common good matrix? Can you help us with that one, Christian?
Yeah, well, it's a creation, it's an open source creation of the economy for the common good movement. And if you just search for economy for the common good and then matrix or balance sheet, you will immediately find it. The domain is ecogood.org, but tickling in the words, you will find it immediately. I can put it in the chat actually while I'm talking to you, Michael.
Thank you very much. So, okay, you've got a big idea, but creating change is so hard. I mean, right now we're having record temperatures worldwide. We're having fires in roads. Everything is hot. Record temperatures, and still, Twitter seems to be ablaze with comments from people saying, "Oh yeah, but it's not because of climate change," and all that kind of stuff. It's hard enough to convince people of something that is so obvious. How are you going to convince people and get consensus for what you're talking about?
Well, offering them alternatives. Our experience is that if politicians say that there is no alternative, as Margaret Thatcher has coined this slogan, and many other politicians followed the flow, and they repeated it until people thought, if you don't like capitalism, the only alternative is socialism. But this is not true. There are many alternatives. We have already mentioned the donut economics approach. The economy for the common good is equidistant to both capitalism and socialism. And it's not only a new alternative. Actually, what Aristotle, who coined the term oikonomia, understood by that originally is an economy for the common good. He differentiated capitalism with a different term in his times, χρηματιστική, and he said that capitalism is actually the opposite of an economy for the common good, because in the economy in an oikonomia, it's all about creating and increasing the common good, whereas money and capital are the means. And if this relationship flips around, if you strive for financial ends first and foremost, increasing money, increasing capital, then this is not an oikonomia any longer. This is a capitalistic order or a χρηματιστική. So there are plenty of alternatives. And if people are asked which alternative they prefer, or let's put it like this, if they only have the choice between capitalism and socialism, a majority might opt for capitalism. That's for sure. But if there are further choices, like the donut economics approach, like the economy for the common good, like the circular economy, the social and solidarity economy, then we know from experience that people opt for these new alternatives, but they have to be informed, and their political choice has to be informed one. Only then they're really free to decide, because if they don't know the alternatives, then they're not even free to decide. And as a precedence to this free political choice between many alternatives, there has to be a plural approach in economic science and economic education. Because what happens in the political sphere of society is already previously done at our universities. People only learn about one model and one approach, and it's capitalism, and there are no alternatives. So universities and business schools should go at the forefront and inform people about the many alternatives that there are. And then we will also be able to vote for them in political decisions.
Okay, thank you for that, Christian. Now, I was going to ask you a little bit about the common good matrix, but you have discussed that anyway. But with a bit of luck, that the image of the common good matrix will be appearing on the screen any second. So maybe when it does appear, you could sort of just, here we are. Perhaps you could give us a 30-second overview of this.
Yes. Okay, very briefly, but it's the same story. If you ask the people, should companies only disclose their financial indicators and figures, or should they be obliged to disclose also their ethical indicators about human dignity, about solidarity, about justice, about sustainability and democracy and participation? These are fundamental values which are enshrined in our constitutions, whereas money and capital, they are just means. There are no values by themselves. So it's even more important that companies disclose the impact that they are causing in their activities on our fundamental values according to all their stakeholders. And this is the sustainability reporting, it's called. We call it a common goal balance sheet. And more importantly than just reporting and informing and disclosing this information is that it is externally evaluated. And the common goal balance sheet has a score. We have common good points, and our proposal is that those companies that achieve a high score and achieve many points, that they have an easier life, because those who are very responsible and sustainable, they have higher costs and a competitive disadvantage in relation to others who care less. They have lower costs and a competitive advantage. And this is a system error. This is nonsensical. And we would like to have those companies that do best to nature, to society, and to us humans, and to democracy, that they can offer their products and services at lower costs. And this is possible if you give your sustainability report a score, and if you link that score to positive and negative incentives from public procurement and economic promotion to taxes and finance condition, but even ending up to access to global markets. Then only the fairest and most sustainable companies will trade freely, whereas those who harm and damage our commons and our common values, they will not have an equally free trade as the others.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, I want to ask you about whether the risk of changing a winning formula. There is a view that capitalism has achieved great results. Now, I'll cite a couple of examples of that. Steven Pinker, who wrote the book Better Angels of Our Nature, says that if the past is a foreign country, it is a shockingly violent one. It is easy to forget how dangerous life used to be, how deeply brutality was once woven into the fabric of daily existence. Cultural memory pacifies the past, leaving us with pale souvenirs whose bloody origins have been bleached away. Oh, very poetic, isn't it? He says, the present is probably the most peaceful time in the history of the human species. And he says that globally, poverty has fallen. Also, Angus Maddison, an economist who died a few years ago, has produced some very interesting data going back over time. And he says that annual per capita income in AD 1000 is thought to be equivalent to $427. Okay, 500 years later, it was $771. 1820, $1,202. So it doubled in about 800 years. But from 1820 to 2003, it increased tenfold. So my question to you is that could it not be said that actually capitalism is doing all right? Is it not risky to try and change a winning formula?
Well, it's something different to say that he's doing all right or he's not doing everything wrong. And I would say he's doing some things really right, but too many things really wrong. That's why in the Edelman Agency survey for the first time in 2020, a majority of globally surveyed citizens said that capitalism is doing more harm than good. I think this is a very decisive tipping point in the public opinion about capitalism. And if capitalism is one of the several causes that we have less wars, then it's a very good thing. But we still have by far too many wars, and we don't need few wars. We need zero wars, and we need an even better system than capitalism, which produces no war at all. And there are still some links between capitalism and producing weapons and exporting weapons and benefiting from wars. And in an economy for the common good, we would delete these incentives, and companies that produce or export weapons, they will be disincentivized. And we have to strengthen the United Nations and not military alliances that benefit by additional wars. That's one. And these figures that global poverty levels have sunk, well, they are challenged by others. It was Bill Gates actually who was applauding these studies that you also quoted, and then it was Jason Hickel, a contemporary economist, who challenged these studies, and he said, if you don't take the World Bank reference of $1.95 per day per person as the poverty threshold, but if you take, because could you live on that in the United States, for instance, or in UK? Of course you couldn't. So let's take a more reasonable benchmark, which is maybe $7 to $8 or even $10 per day. And then the outcome is completely different. The outcome is that half of mankind is still living in poverty, and the share, not the number, but the share has increased over the past 20 years. So there's a completely different result. And science has never consensus in these questions. You have to look from different perspectives, question the measures. And in the end, you have to ask if people are happy and are becoming happier. And exactly in the richest countries, the more financial income rise and become higher, people are becoming less happy. So we're just having the wrong indicators on our dashboards, and we should put happiness and health and relationships and social cohesion and stable ecosystems on our economic dashboards. And then we can measure if people are becoming happier and if societies are becoming more successful or less successful than in previous times.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I do agree. I actually agree with a lot of what you just said there. And I certainly agree about strengthening the United Nations. I think the United Nations is ultimately the hub of peace. Interesting, I watched the Oppenheimer film over the weekend, which was a great film, but it's quite scary as well. Yeah, and I also agree about happiness as well. And I think sometimes we forget that isn't it all about our social lives, our friendships, our family, and GDP at the expense of that isn't necessarily a good thing. Okay, I understand you've got this idea about how you can use democracy to advance your concept. Can you just explain that a little bit?
Yes, we are envisioning a deeper, a more participatory, and a more direct democratic level. So far, we know only electoral and liberal democracies, which is already something. It's a great achievement, but we're envisioning a more direct and participatory democracy in which the people can not only choose between political parties, but in specific situations and on specific topics, they can have choices directly on the issue. I already mentioned one example. If people could choose between capitalism, socialism, and an economy for the common good, combined with the donut, combined with circularity, combined with the social and solidarity economy, they would opt for the latter. I know from empirical trials that people, if they had the choice, not only between free trade and protectionism, but also ethical world trade, a third and fourth and fifth alternative, they would opt for ethical world trade. And the most experienced experiment that I have done in more than 25 countries is ask people if they would like to limit inequality. Because again, the false dichotomy between no limit to inequality at all, which is capitalism, or total equality of all persons, which is socialism, people would have resistance against both extremes, but they would have a much lower resistance, which is a preference for an economy where inequality is limited to, let's say, 10 times the highest incomes to the lowest incomes, or maybe 20 times there's a ratio between the highest and lowest incomes. People would vote for that in 25 countries, including US and UK. I've played it all around the world. It works. And so what we need is a stronger democracy, giving more rights and more decision-making instruments and processes to the people. I call it sovereign democracy because it's the Latin term that says that the people are the highest instance and they should have the final word, at least in the most relevant and important decisions. We still would appreciate parliaments, governments that would remain as they are, but just additionally, in those few cases where they do something that the people really dislike in their broad majority, or if they don't go for action. The example is they do not go for action in order to limit inequality. Then the people should have and become the right to take initiative. And then they could decide some of these topics, and this would strengthen democracy, it would strengthen societies, and it would improve our economies.
Okay, so I mean, in the UK, and I guess in a lot of countries, the system of democracy we have is that we elect wise people, they're not always that wise, admittedly, to make decisions on our behalf. The democracy is we choose who these wise people are. Is there a danger that you kind of leave it to sort of everyone to vote on everything, that we're going to be susceptible to groupthink and demagogues sort of having undue influence?
We can look at the example that exists. On the one hand, we have ever more direct democratic decisions. And when they are really emerging from the people, Brexit is not an example because Brexit was not an initiative by the people. So if we look at examples where the initiatives come from the people, this is in Switzerland, and ask the people, or first look at the country, is Switzerland a failed state? No, Switzerland is one of the most attractive countries of the planet, and people are most happy with the democratic and political system compared to other countries. So we can dare more democracy. This is the learning. But still, I would even improve the Swiss democratic model. I would never allow just one proposal to be voted upon, because if you have only one proposal, you have a polarizing effect guaranteed. And I don't want to polarize people, all having to be in favor or against one proposal. I would allow several proposals. This is a much wiser procedure developed by two mathematicians of University of Graz in Austria. And we see if 3 or 4 or 5 proposals are voted upon, the extreme proposals, I just gave 3 examples for that, they will be voted out. They have not the lightest opportunity to be the winners. The winners are the most thoughtful ones, the most considerate ones, the most empathetic ones, and the ones that are closest to the general good, to the common good. This is the experience. It's empirically proven. And that would also be my proposal for improving Switzerland's direct democracy. And this is a form of democracy that we should not be afraid of at all.
Okay, thank you for that. So just a couple of questions here. Swetam Gunga, who has been a guest on the show in the past and will indeed be a guest on the show again in the future, he's got a question for you. The current framework is one where the banking and finance sector are the drivers of the economy as opposed to being a support to the economy. In practice, how do we shift to a new paradigm? How do we rally governments, the finance sector, businesses, and global organizations to now focus on citizens as the ultimate beneficiary of the common good?
Well, in the same way as we today allow banks or capital owners to be the drivers of the economy and as a consequence of society and of democracy, we would have to allow those who protect our fundamental values, from human rights to democracy to solidarity and to sustainability, to become the drivers of the economy and of economic activities. And we would do it by replacing GDP by a democratically composed common good product, which includes everything that we have now talked about, from health to happiness, from justice to sustainability. We would ask companies to prioritize their sustainability report over their financial balance sheet. Then the experts that will be asked first are those with expertise in sustainability topics. And we would prioritize the common good assessment of every investment over the financial risk assessment, because only if a potential investment and a potential finance transaction is at least not doing harm to nature, to society, to human dignity and relationships, only then the secondary assessment is done, which is the financial risk assessment. And so we are shifting priorities exactly according to Aristotle's proposal. We shift back from a chrematistike, from capitalism, to a true oikonomia. That's the proposal, and it's society's choice. And if we take a democratic decision, which means asking all the people, we already know that a large majority of the people would prefer an oikonomia over the current capitalistic model.
Okay, thank you for that, Christian. One more observation. Nania Hurley refers to Professor Kevin Haynes. Professor Kevin Haynes, I can't actually find your comment, merely Nania's reference to it. And she says, absolutely. And to think that 20% of the world is responsible for using so much more resources than would be our fair share. We need to do better on a personal level, government level, and ESG can help us do better as economic players. Christian, we've got to call an end to it there, but thank you very, very much. Can I ask you in 10 seconds to say, what can people do?
Well, they can reach out for these alternative models, no matter if it's the economy for the common good, the donut economic approach, the circular economy, or the social and solidarity, or the degrowth discourse, which is ever growing. And they can join this movement and reinforce them. And the common denominator of all of us is to strengthen and to deepen democratic decision-making processes, because without them, we will get none of these beautiful alternatives. We need both better democratic processes and more convincing economic models.
Thank you very much for that, Christian. Now, thank you very much indeed. Maybe we can see you again on the ESG show sometime. We've got to go. If technology works with us, you're about to see a recording of an interview I did a couple of weeks ago. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you again next week.
Bye-bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye. Are celebrities the enemy of ESG? At least the clothes they wear. The obsessions with celebrities and fashion and shopping till you drop for consumer society goes against many of the core tenets of ESG. Yet celebrities continue to be paid millions by companies, many of which allegedly sign on to the ESG and sustainability agenda, to influence this and next generation, while spouting ESG and other political views. Hypocrites, uneducated, or dangerous individuals?
Well, I suppose one thing for me about, we see they're jumping on private jets, or they're flying first class everywhere, and yet, oh yes, we should all save the planet. Yes, a bit like everyone that goes to Davos. We're all going to save the world, but how many hundreds of private jets are parked there at any one time? I was shocked about 4 or 5 years ago. I actually read something and heard, is it like 100 litres or maybe more of water to make one pair of jeans? And I'm still finding it hard to get my head around that figure, if that's maybe a bit embellished, but even if it's 5 or 6 litres per pair, it's still a lot. And and we tend to have this, you never see, look, I love Formula One, Lewis Hamilton with all these different fashions. I never see him turn up in the same outfit, for example, and that's got to have all of that. And a lot of it comes from petrochemicals. Fine, don't have a problem with that. There's always going to be a role for hydrocarbons and things in everyday life. A lot of things come from nature as well, but my point is maybe wears it once and maybe gives it away or whatever, but how many outfits do people like that buy? A lot of these famous singers, actors, and that, all this stuff. I mean, it just seems a very consumerist thing, and it's a very much, I'm going to buy this very expensive, item of clothing, make this fashion statement, and wear it once or twice, and then, go and wear something else. And I think it's a waste. That's just my view. It's just throwing good money after bad. And if it is just for, a pair of jeans, 100 litres of water, how many pairs of jeans a year do these celebrities buy? Multiply it by how many celebrities there are in the world. That's a lot of water that people could be using for clean drinking water where they live, or not dumping the contents of it into some river where we're killing wildlife.
The water you use for a pair of jeans, you can use it again, can't you? You can just keep using the water, can't you?
Not 100%.
No?
No, not 100%. Levi's has tried to come up with some products which they claim to say that this pair of jeans uses like 1/5 of the water that the traditional jeans used to consume. But then those are just claims. We don't know how much change they have made at their factory level. And then also some percent of water that is used in the apparel industry is reused for like in the manufacturing process, but it is not 100%.
You get these fast fashion retailers in the UK. We all know them. You go in there and you pick up a t-shirt for hardly anything, and they get worn twice. I have to say to you, I go into that shop and buy t-shirts for hardly anything, and I've worn them loads of times. But the trend is it's disposable. It's disposable culture, and that's not good, is it? So what's the answer though? And also, with the younger people as well. The younger people demonstrate. They talk about their climate change credentials. They seem to be very keen to promote that, but they're the people that go on that seem to be particularly into fast fashion.
I think I just have something to add to that problem, not really a solution. That all these fast fashion brands that we're just picking our clothes from, and just this other day, I was in fact discussing this with my husband. So for example, Primark has very low prices as compared to what an average brand would have. And I really fail to understand that how they are making money on it. And the only way possible is that they are cutting their margins, not margins, the cutting the cost of the people who are making these products very low. So it's not just an environmental problem, it is also a social problem that comes attached with this fast fashion. Like, you can afford something that should be worth £10, but you are getting it at £2 because someone else is bearing those £8 on your behalf. Someone else who is not getting living wages, someone else who is working very long hours and very poor condition.
That takes us into the thing about degrowth. Because I'm not like you, Rob. I'm not a degrowther, but sometimes if that degrowth means the economy's growing really fast because people are just using disposable clothes, isn't that the wrong type of growth?
Yeah, I mean, you can create growth from anything. I mean, you could go around smashing windows up and down the street and you'll create excellent growth in window repair, but it's delivering no value. So I mean, you do have that. I mean, it's a big societal thing, isn't it? Part of it's education in terms of people don't really understand that every time you buy something from one of these companies, you are harming someone at the other end of the chain, and the environmental impacts. A lot of it comes from mental health as well. We use consumerism as part of what is, in the Western lifestyle has lost some of its value set a bit, and that's quite difficult. But it's also, how do you survive and get by as well? So it's very hard to tell a family in the cost of living crisis that we're having here in the UK that you can't buy cheap clothes, because whilst yes, the level of harm to them is much lower than the level of harm to someone in that factory, they may feel they have no choice. So we can't be preachy about it either. And I'm now going to sound even older than I already am, Michael, but there was a time where we were able to fix things and mend things and that reuse culture, and it's becoming a little bit trendy to do that now, and knitting has become fashionable, so hopefully you'll see this countercultural thing. But I couldn't, this shirt does have a hole in behind, I'm not going to turn around. I would struggle to sew it. So that is we probably need, there's a skills question, there's a mental health question, there's an education question. There's a whole load of kind of big public policy stuff that sits around this problem.
So Rob, I'm getting very worried about you. You're obviously concerned about your age. You obviously seem to think you're getting on in years, and you've got a hole in your t-shirt. I mean, should I be worrying about you, do you think?
And I've never been invited onto Love Island. It's all going
on. Oddly enough, neither have I.
Yeah. I was also in fact thinking about the downfall of a repair economy, and this is a huge difference that I've seen between India and UK, that getting a thing fixed in UK is very difficult, whereas in India the culture of like hand me downs or just repairing your old clothes or just repurposing them into something other, if you wear a t-shirt, like I remember in my childhood, we used to wear the same clothes for like as many years it can go by, and you just hand it down to the, to the next of kin or to the next of cousin. And if it's lived all of its life as a t-shirt, it can just turn into a wipe cloth. And, that is something very integrated in the culture of, at least I know it's in India, but I'm sure it happens a lot in most of the other countries as well. It is not really as integrated in like the societal fabric of what I see here in UK, and it might not really make a huge impact in terms of in terms of statistics, but I think it definitely creates a difference in how the younger generation is then thinking about the use and throw policy.
And also their values as well, that you just not everyone, and it comes back to that mental health point as well, Michael, about and this whole peer pressure and everything. Oh, get the latest thing and keep up. Well, actually people start to value it. And I know where I live, in Turkey, that there is still a lot of poor people, and my daughter's clothes, for example, we always know someone, it's someone somewhere, or a relative of someone that's really benefits from having those handed down, and really appreciate them. And they're probably going on to someone else after that and someone else after that. And I hope they are, because, she's got nice things, and she, grows so quickly, or has grown so quickly in the past, that it's nice to say, these are well looked after and well loved, and hopefully someone can have the same pleasure from them. But also, just to Rob, your point about repairing, and Prachi, this, if we have the repair economy come back, guess what? We have to educate people in vocational skills again, and that's growth and value creation. And guess what? They have a lot of self-respect because they've got good jobs, they're developing their skills, they're paying taxes, they're becoming self-sufficient, and that in itself fuels growth. And it also gives people a lot of dignity as well, instead of collecting unemployment benefits because they've been chucked out of their job because, oh, guess what? We're all moving towards a fast disposable economy.
So there's growth in the repair economy. It's not only is it better for the environment, it creates wealth as well. But can this not be done with brand? Can this not be done? So again, it pays us back the carrot and stick. Maybe there should be the equivalent of the government health warning. Government health, cigarettes can seriously damage your health. Can't there be a sticker? This T-shirt was produced with slave labor, or at least the packaging should come with that. But on the other hand, a big logo. This product, it's got a 5-star award for being good for, being socially responsible.
I mean, Ethical Consumer Magazine has that, but obviously it's a niche magazine that a few very small number of people have, and and they rank this stuff. And it's a good question around what you value, because they rank. So for white goods, for instance, Miele, the German company, where all their products last 25 years or more, they use less microplastics, come off the clothes and everything else, and they've got an A++ rating on energy efficiency. They're a really smart example of a company that gets holistic sustainability right, and they get rewarded for it in the market. They cost more, so they're not huge mass market, but they're very, very profitable and do very well, and they're known for it. It's a family-owned business, and the values of that business are real.
And this is something that I used to think about a lot, that every product, and in fact every mass product, should come with like some kind of rating, and that rating standard should be like uniform across the world. So like, every product can be, benchmarked on the exact same standards, and then you just instantly know what is good, what is bad. But one key challenge that I see with this, and especially for mass market, is that we cannot determine these ratings or these stars until we have the data of how that product is made, right? What all has gone into it in terms of, all its supply chain, all its raw material, its processes, everything. And we cannot have access to data unless the company that is producing it is ready to, share that data.
So, but for us as business leaders and people advising business leaders, we should absolutely be helping brands become those kind of equivalent brands. But clearly the stack it high, sell it cheap model exists for a very large part of the market. And then how do you move them there? And fundamentally, does that require governments to step in and say, sorry, but this is just not on anymore, because our waterways are absolutely destroyed, the social impacts are horrific, the carbon intensity is too high. Like this, you've externalized too many costs, and as a result now society needs to make you internalize those costs again. As good capitalists, ideally we would make businesses internalize as many of those costs as possible. And if you create a kind of false capitalism, don't you, if they can accumulate all of the value from selling something cheap but don't really pay the true cost of what they're producing. So whilst I'm very careful about promoting more and more regulation, we're a very regulated group of people, there probably are places where regulation needs to be stepped up to create proper capitalism. Actually, capitalism fails when it's under-regulated and the rules of the game aren't right.
I think that's more a question of ethics and good governance with individual organizations, but yeah. But you're always going to get it anyway, even in overly regulated places. Someone's always going to be paying someone off. Then you get to the opposite and you get corruption that's just rife because they're paying off the authorities. So yeah, very hard though, isn't it, Rob, to get the right balance?
Yeah. If you over regulate, then just ignore the regulations.